Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Breckland Planning for today. Could I first of all start off with what we class as our general housekeeping before we go to the agenda? First item is fire. If the alarm sounds for a fire, then we will vacate the building. And congratulations to all the members on our last meeting when we actually had a test and they didn't know it was going to happen, and they were very good. Very, very good. We got top marks. We would not have fried had it been for real. So if you do hear the alarm, we will treat it as genuine and we will vacate the building. The two fire exits are here, one down at the end of the corridor where the lavatories are, and obviously the door where you entered. Our congregation point is at the far corner of the car park. Just follow all the other people. Thank you. Next item is phones and various mobile devices. If you can make sure they're switched to silent or off if you wish, but silent is fine. If your phone goes off and disturbs my meeting, it's down as a £10 fine to the chairman's charity. That's not me as chairman of this committee, it's the chairman of the council, who is also a member of our planning committee, Councillor Keith Gilbert. And Keith, would you like to tell him your chosen charity that their £10 fine will go to?
Please keep your phones on and help Big C, Northern Suffolk Cancer Charity, and East Anglian Children's Hospital.
There we go. So £10 well spent for you to. You'll get a scowl off me, but £10 to him. He's so shallow at times. Honestly, Keith. Next item, procedure. When each item is read, I've got a list of people who have registered to speak. You'd like to come and sit on the right-hand side, which are the seats are clearly marked, and the officer will give the presentation. And when I tell you, you can have your time and you can speak. When I've had enough of listening to you, which is usually 3 minutes, the bell will sound, and that will ask you to sum up that sentence, not go on for another 15 minutes. I also have the power to switch off the microphone, so you can chunter away, but you'll have to be really loud, because that is the power of the chairman's microphone kit. Good. Introductions. At our far end, we have Simon Wood, who is the Director of Planning and Building Control. Beside me, on my left-hand side, I have Mike Horn, who is Solicitor to the Council. On my right-hand side, I have my right-hand woman, who I would never achieve anything around here if it wasn't for Rebecca Collins, who is Head of Development Services. You don't have to nod your head in such agreement. At the far end, ready for our first presentation, is Barbara Greengrass, who's a Principal Planning Officer. I've also got Lisa O'Donovan, who is a Senior Planning Officer. If you could stand up, Lisa, so they can all see you. The members don't all know who you are. There we go. And we have Naomi Mintu, one of our other planning officers, who can stand up so they can all see you. And that's simply because then you don't see them so much in the building because you're in there, out, and what have you. So these are faces to the names that you already know. We should be joined later by Lucy Gaffer, who's our one of our planning officers. We have Chris Fitzgerald at the back, who is our usher for today. Thank you, Chris. And Julie Britton, who is our democratic officer, who takes all the minutes and keeps us all in check. And also, those you can stay sat down, they know you. And also we have Ben Morley with us. Ben's sitting at the back of the room, and he is a democratic graduate. And I said, oh, how are you here for a short while? He's here for 2 years. So he's going to learn everything, and so you need to teach him well. Although I challenge you because he seems a very smart young man. So let that be a warning to you. Okay, so that's all of that. So now we're going to make a start on our agenda for today. Item 1 is minutes, and it's to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 24th of September 2024. Do I have your agreement to sign those minutes off? Thank you. Thank you, Julie. Okay, Julie, item 2 will be apologies and substitutes, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I have apologies from Councillor Anscombe, who has sent her apologies due to her declaring an interest in agenda items 9A, 9B and 9E for Swaffham, and Councillor Attewell and Councillor Chris Harvey, And we have Councillor Keith Gilbert in attendance as substitute for Councillor Attewell.
That's terrific, thank you. Thanks for joining us today, Keith. Do appreciate it. Thank you. We have item 3, declarations of interest and representations received. I will take Councillor Kybird.
Item 10, 3 NM 20240050 NMA as my company. Thank you.
One of the decisions.
Oh, a decision made, yeah, at the back. Okay, that's fine. I'll make a note of that, and I will then say, it's a good job you covered it off then, because I was just going to say I will take them as each item is raised, so it could have been at the end. Item 4, Chairman's announcements. We are still one member short for our December the 18th panel. I know it's close to Christmas, and because it's online, I can't promise you mince pies. I just hope that someone could spare some time to join our panel. Also, could I ask all members to stay back at the end of the meeting? Councillor Kybird? Oh, you're volunteering now. Well done. Can you make a note of that, please? Thanks, Councillor Kybird. So yes, if all members could just stay back at the end, there's just a brief thing I want to go through with you all. And just to let you know, there's 64 sleeps to Christmas, which I know you're all interested in. Thank you. Good. Item 5, request to defer applications in this agenda. We don't have any. Item 6 is urgent business. We don't have any urgent business either. We're racing through it now. Item 7, we have a local plan update. Over to you, please, Simon.
Thank you, Chairman, and I suspect we'll race through this as well because there's not a huge amount to update on. As you'll know, at Cabinet on the 23rd of September, we deferred the local plan. We're still awaiting the revised NPPF to be issued. We anticipate that will be sometime towards the end of December, beginning of January, and we will restart our local plan process after that date. For information, there is a new policy officer starting on Monday, which is the 28th of October. It's a name you'll recognise as she served with distinction in our development management team, and that's Gemma Manthorpe, who will be rejoining us as our policy manager on the 28th of October. So we will welcome Gemma then, and at some time in the future, she'll be sitting here giving you this update. So thank you very much.
Okay, well, I'm glad no one's got to stick their hand up because we won't go anywhere with it anyway. So our next item is deferred applications, which we have none that we are bringing into today's agenda. So we move to item 9, our schedule of planning applications. And we have 2 that we're sort of joining together, although we will take 2 votes on. That's Swaffham, that's 3PL 2023 0110F. and 3PL 2023 0154F, and they are both at Swaffham Landits of New Spall Road. And I have 2 people who are here for questions only, if you wish to ask them later on, and that's Rob Wells, who's the agent. If you'd like to come and sit here, please, Mr. Wells, and Kai Gibbons, who's the applicant. I'd like to equally take a seat. So after the presentation, if you wish, you could ask them questions to clarify any items that you feel you need raised. I just wait for our officers to get themselves sorted.
Thank you, Chairman. So as the Chairman has said, my intention is to do 2 presentations, one after the other, because there are 2 sites adjoining each other, so it makes sense to present them, and then at the very end, members can discuss. So the first application we have is for 5 dwellings. This is where we are in Swaffham. The 5 dwellings are at the front of this allocation, 006. There's the red line, which shows the extent of the 5 dwellings within the larger allocation. That's the site as it is today. It is an old allotment site. And these are the 5 dwellings proposed with the shared access to the larger site to the back. So I'll just take you through the proposal and then we'll come back. So this is the bungalows as proposed, one terraced row and a pair. This is the site from New Spoil Road. The one on the left is looking straight at the site from the road. The one on the right is just south of the site. You can see existing bungalows. This is inside of the site where the bungalows will be sited to the left and then on the right looking back up towards the A47. This is again within the site and then along the site frontage where the new access will be proposed. Again, the site frontage and the bungalows to the south, and the new access will be proposed through that hedge. So again, within the site and the site frontage. This is further down New Spoil Road, looking north, and you can see on the right-hand side the entrance to Tumbler Hill. And in the distance, you can see the site. So I'll just take you back. So looking at the principle of development, obviously this is within the allocation and there is a policy within the local plan called Swaffham Housing Allocation 1, which allows for the total allocation for at least 51 dwellings. So as you can see in my report, I've went through the criteria of that housing allocation policy, and it's considered that criteria 1 and 2 of that policy is met because access is proposed from New Spoil Road. Following amendments, the proposals are considered to provide for a layout and design which does provide an appropriate response to the established pattern of development along the west of New Spoil Road and respects the site's location as a key gateway into Swaffham. Criteria 2 is therefore complied with, and as will be demonstrated further in the report, criteria 3 and 4 are also complied with. So therefore, the principle is acceptable. So looking at the designs, I'll just take you back. So it proposes a terraced row and a pair of semis set in a line just behind the existing bungalow to the south of the site. It's set behind a small parcel of land which is outside of the applicant's control and will remain unchanged. On the road frontage, this is bounded by the mature hedge and trees, which means that views of the bungalow behind will not be highly visible. In addition, officers have insisted that the existing frontage hedgerow along the road is retained as far as possible, whilst allowing for the required access and visibility display. This is in order to safeguard the character of the area to which the mature hedgerow makes a valuable contribution. So the dwellings are considered to be of a scale which is in keeping with and not overbearing to the existing bungalows immediately to the south, being 6.3 metres in height. The designs are simple and traditional in approach, very much in keeping with what's in the vicinity. So it's considered that it does have regard to the context of the area. You'll note from the report the Town Council did comment that they felt that the designs did not reflect the scale and character of the surrounding buildings. However, on balance, officers have considered that they are in keeping. So in terms of residential amenity, the nearest dwellings to the south are those on the southern boundary, the position of the dwellings from the boundary, and the fact that they're single storey means that there'll be no loss of privacy or overbearing impacts to those residents. The proposed development seeks the provision of the estate road onto New Spoil Road as required by the policy. The application has been supported by a transport statement, and in order to provide safe access, a series of off-site highway works are proposed. And again, they're set out in the report, but briefly, road widening of New Spoil Road to 6 metres at the point of the new access only, so for a distance of 15 metres. 3 metre wide footpath connection across the site frontage within the site with crossing points to allow footpath connection to the other side of the road, and new bus stop provision on the eastern side. So following an initial consultation response and the receipt of amended plans, the Highways Authority are now content with the access and highways arrangements and the parking. So this is considered to be acceptable. Flood risk and surface water drainage strategy were submitted. Initially, concerns were raised by the Flood Authority, but they are now content. So basically, there's SUDS features for this one, for this 5. They all have their own soakways and infiltration. So that's satisfactory. In terms of ecology and biodiversity, the Council's ecologist and Natural England are satisfied in that regard. So there'll be no harm to protected species or habitats. Looking at trees, an arboriculture report outlines that limited tree and hedgerow removal will take place, only what's required to actually accommodate the dwellings. So again, that's acceptable. All other matters have been set out in my report and again are acceptable. So accordingly, the application is recommended for approval, subject to conditions and the completion of a Section 106 agreement. Now, the Section 106 agreement, I will just turn to now, and it'll be the same for both sites. Let me just find, yeah. So the same contributions will be required conjointly with the larger site. Just briefly, they are the open space provision, which you will see when I come to phase 2 at the front of the site. We'll move to that next. So that is being provided in line with policy. And there's also going to be an off-site provision for outdoor sport because the policy recognises that not every site can accommodate outdoor sport provision. So again, that's in line with policy. Turning to health impacts, a financial contribution was sought in combination with the larger site by NHS for health, and the applicant has agreed to that contribution. Norfolk County Council have asked for a contribution towards the bus service number 10, which runs along New Spoil Road in combination with the larger site. And again, the applicant is willing to pay that contribution. Then moving to education, County Council made a request for primary and SEND contributions. However, the applicant disputes the evidence provided by County Council and have provided their own evidence that taking into account future requirements for school places, taking into account the forecast and planned capacity of local schools, that there will be, in fact, sufficient school capacity when the children generated from this development are required to access it. Therefore, the request for primary education fails to meet the tests of planning obligations being necessary to make the development acceptable in planning terms. So the applicant has, in fact, agreed to pay the SEND contribution, which has, you'll see from my addendum, been reduced by County Council because the number of houses reduced from 6 to 5. So that concludes that presentation. If I may then move to the next one.
Yes, Councillor.
It's 154.
It was just specific to this application and something the officer said that I just wanted a query. She used the expression retaining the hedgerows as far as possible. And I wondered whether we could be a bit more specific on that sort of thing. We do very frequently have problems with hedgerows being removed where they ought not to be. And I think that's something we probably ought to be more specific on. That is a comment. It's not going to alter my view on what I think of the application. It's just something I thought we ought to take note of. Thank you.
Obviously, the entrance has to be widened. There's only a small gate entrance at the moment. No, so and ideally the hedge needs to be retained there because there is not a balancing pond. I'm not sure what you call it. The other side of that, and also the 5 in question now are going to be shielded from the highway by the hedge. So I think you would find that the developer would ideally try their best to retain the 2 sides, obviously not in the middle. But there is a question you could ask and be minuted, and we would have some assurances. Okay? Thank you, Barbara, if you'd like to carry on.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. So this is the larger site to the rear. Just take you, so again, it takes up the whole of that allocation, 006. This is the site area. Again, it takes up the rest of the site, which was former allotments. And the proposal is for 51 dwellings, which are 100% affordable housing. I'll just take you through. So this is a selection of the elevations proposed. These are the masonettes. Some of these pictures are the same, so this is a different picture. This is standing on the public right-of-way to the east of the site, close to the A47, looking back towards Swaffham. So that's the hedgerow along the northern edge of the site, which is to be retained. These are within the site frontage. Just touching on the councillor's question, officers have worked at length with the applicant to try and retain as much of that hedge as possible, because when the application came in, the County Council wanted a footpath all the way along that site frontage, which meant that the whole of the hedge would have to come out. So officers pushed back as much as to say, there's a footpath on the other side of the road, people can cross over. So that's where we are now. We are at a point where the hedge is coming out to provide the access and the footway connections, but the rest will be retained, and the section that is to be taken out will be replaced behind the footpath. So again, looking at the principle of development, as I've already said, I'll try not to be too repetitive. The allocation allows for at least 51 dwellings. Criteria 1 and 2 of the allocations policy are considered to be complied with. The proposals are considered to provide for a layout and design which does provide an appropriate response to the established pattern of development along the west of New Spoil Road and respects the site's location as a key gateway into Swaffham. This is demonstrated in the visual section of my report. And criteria 3 and 4 are also met, as you can see in the report. So my report sets out the relevant policies in terms of visual impact. And I've shown you some pictures there of the site context. And just note the north of this slide, the hedge along the northern boundary is to be retained and maintained. There's also a hedge along the eastern side which bounds onto Tumbler Hill. Here. That's also to be retained. So in terms of the density of development, it works out at 25 dwellings per hectare, which is not considered to be high density. The development is well set back from New Spoil Road, with the large area of open space fronting the site and behind existing properties in Tumbler Hill. So it's considered the development will not be harmful to the character of the area. The proposals would accord with the approach to density set out in Policy House 6 of the local plan. The development would also not be highly visible from the surroundings, being set away from the A47, and existing field boundary hedges will remain, including the frontage hedge in large part. There are 3 masonette blocks in the site, which are to the centre and east. I'll point those, so here and here. These are 2-storey blocks containing 4 flats, each with a private amenity space. There are 4-bed detached dwellings, which act as feature dwellings on the site. Dwellings front the main access, private drives and open space. The dwellings offer slight architectural differences to create a varied street scene. So a large part of the open space at the front of the site contains the sub-basin and play area. The basin will only be wet in heavy rainfall, so it's usable as open space. The area assists in softening the impacts of the development as dwellings are set back, and the frontage hedgerow will be replaced where it's to be removed to accommodate the access. You will see in the plan this additional strip of open space to the north here. It has a footpath through it which provides, leading to the southeast. And previously there was a connection through the site directly onto Tumbler Hill, but that's been removed because of objections from residents in Tumbler Hill. So that was here. Officers felt that that was also acceptable because one path to the northeast provides suitable connectivity to the wider area. Now you'll see from my report that the Designing Out Crime officer did remark that this space isn't particularly well overlooked, although plots 1 and 7 adjoining do have views across that area, which is here. That plot and that plot. In fact, those two plots. But officers have considered this very carefully, as there's a balance to be struck between the policy requirements to prevent crime and also the requirements for connectivity. And consideration has also been given to the requirements of policy TRA 2 of the neighbourhood plan, which seeks to create greater connectivity between public rights of way across the town and its hinterland. This will encourage walking and well-being. The relevant part of that policy is in my report and states that new residential development should incorporate opportunities for walking and cycling, new footpaths and cycleways should connect to town services, existing routes and the surrounding area, including Swavesey Way and Peddars Way. So the footpath gives this new community direct access to the countryside along public rights of way which run directly north and south of the site, allowing further connections further north and south to the wider network. And the Breckland Design Guide also considers new pedestrian connections. I do have a map of the connectivity which might help members. So that this map shows the site, and the pink is all of the rights of way around Swaffham. So you can see it provides a link to all of those routes. So on balance, this connection is supported by officers, as there is some amount of surveillance, and this area of land would be used as open space in any event. It will also allow for a footpath connection to the site immediately to the north of the site, which is also a housing allocation. So therefore, it's considered that the designs and layout is acceptable. Moving to residential amenity. The layout is such that acceptable amenity is afforded to future residents in terms of overlooking and garden sizes. The layout of the dwellings is such that they would not have any adverse impact on neighbouring properties close to the site. So this is considered acceptable. I've already spoken about the access in the previous presentation, which is the same for this site, and adequate parking has also been provided with at least 2 parking spaces per dwelling and provision of 12 visitor spaces across the site. This accords with policy and is considered acceptable. Flood risk and drainage. The applicant was accompanied by the flood risk assessment and surface water drainage strategy, which was informed by investigations, and it's resulted in the use of SUDS techniques, including permeable paving and garden soakaways, which all drain to the basin, to the front of the site. Foul water drainage is to the mains, and Anglian Water are content with that. Therefore, surface and foul water drainage are considered acceptable. Ecology and biodiversity. Reports have been submitted, and the ecologist, following amendments, is satisfied with the information, as is Natural England. Therefore, there's no significant harm to protected species, priority species or habitats. Trees, hedgerows, landscaping. There's an extensive landscaping scheme. Most of the trees and hedgerows are to be kept and only removed where they need to be, and obviously replaced with replacement planting. So that's also considered acceptable. All of the other matters in the report are considered acceptable. Such officers can recommend approval as it's acceptable in terms of complying with the policies in the local plan, the Swaffham Neighbourhood Plan and the Breckland Design Guide. Therefore, it's recommended for approval subject to the obligations as set out previously and conditions in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. It's open to questions from members. Councillor Clark, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, and thank you to the officer for the presentation of these two developments. First question I've got is around, and I'll follow up with the other question as well. First question around clarification on the contribution that the NHS is seeking. I know that under 9A there were no comments from the NHS, East England, etc., but they've specified an amount in there. There's also a similar amount in 9B. So my question is, when they've delineated what that would be used for, so my question around the health contribution is there a separate health contribution being sought for 9A and 9B, or whether that's the same? And the other question is on the highways, in the application 9A, there's a comment there from Highways about access, and I think, am I reading it, that's resolved by condition 8 on 9A application. That's all the questions I've got, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, turning to the health, yeah, the contribution covers both sites. So the contribution will be pro-rated out in the 106s to cover both. And it's to go towards health infrastructure in Swaffham. So potentially extensions to the doctor's surgery in Swaffham. The question about the highways, yeah, that's now resolved. As you could see, yes, in paragraph 310, that hadn't been resolved when the report was written, but that is now resolved. It was just a minor tweak to the access. So highways are now happy and the conditions will be attached as they requested. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kybird, please.
Thank you, Chairman. As regards the maisonettes, what are the access arrangements for the first floor flats? Because we have heard at scrutiny that RSLs do not like shared access spaces. So could I have a comment, please?
Yes, Councillor, that is correct. I was aware of that. So these maisonettes all have their own front door, so there's no shared corridors. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Bowes, please.
Thank you. Could you put the slide up of the design of the houses, please? Yeah, please. Okay. I just wanted to note that in the report, the public comments on the design, you know, one saying that the character of housing not in keeping with the area, the proposals do not have regard to local context and enhance the area, and they do not respect the scale and character of surrounding building, and also that the proposed development is a generic suburban, ugly identical anaesthetic design and does not enhance the town. I mean, I would kind of agree that that's not a very, they're not very inspiring design, and I have concerns that large sites solely for affordable housing maybe are not being equally held to fit with Breckland's design code. So I would, you know, like to hear a comment on that, please. And I wonder if my fellow councillors might feel the same, that that isn't really a great design. Thank you.
Yeah, we have looked at the design code when looking at the dwellings that are involved, and I appreciate they are modest in their basic, thank you, in their appearance, and I get that. I think when you're looking at the wider character of the town, you know, a lot of the surrounding development is 70s, 80s bungalows. in the immediate area. I appreciate that as you get closer to the town, there's a lot of historic buildings which do have a very unique character in Swaffham and are, highly celebrated. I think the materials here are a red brick palette, which pulls from that. They've gone for pan tiles, which again pulls from that. But I do appreciate they lack detailing, and that some of the more historic buildings in the town. I think the chairman's already picked up at the frontage of the site. We've tried to retain the hedgerow, so that will retain that green corridor. And a lot of the green hedgerows around the sites will sort of, to a general degree, hide this development. I think councillors here, what we consider as officers, is there is a balance to be had here. And, bringing in sort of different materials, stone materials, more expensive materials, more detailing comes with it with a cost that often, in order to deliver a 100% affordable housing site, that would make it very difficult. And I don't know if you want to hear from the applicants, they're here to answer questions such as this. But what the officers have done is taken the design guide, the layout of the open space, the green corridors, the connections to the wider network, the 100% affordable housing in itself. It all forms part of that design code. It doesn't just come down to the facades of the building. But I do appreciate they are basic. I do appreciate that, they could have more detailing in the front. They could pull on those design grounds, and it's completely within members to take that within their consideration of the balancing exercise and decide how they feel about it. But what officers have done for you members is, on balance, take the planning benefits of the scheme, the 100% affordable housing, the retention of open space, the retention of those hedgerows, the positive layout, the low density, which is transitional to the open countryside. And in the planning balance, we've recommended this one for approval. It's completely within your remit, members, to take a different approach.
Councillor Bowes?
Thank you. If I could just respond to that. I do take a lot of your points, but I don't think we should be going forward thinking that it's okay to hide a site, because that says it all, really. Just to make that point, I wouldn't like to hear that said in relation to.
There we go, gentlemen. Explain your reasons. I think the officer covered it, most of it, but I don't know if you wish to add anything.
Is that on? Sorry, I couldn't quite hear all of Councillor Bauer's commentary, but yes, in terms of the design, I think Rebecca's dealt with it pretty well. We've obviously looked at the design guide. That has elements, it takes on parts of character. That can be in form of building size, building height, roof styles, window styles, door styles, materiality. They're not quite as plain as I think you might be suggesting, I think, in some of the drawings. I mean, there are window headers and sills, which you don't otherwise sometimes get on, particularly on affordable housing schemes. And it is a balance. I mean, there was a need to deliver the affordable homes, and there's a balance to ensure that the quality of the homes are suitable, and that's what Flagship pride themselves on doing. But there is a balance in terms of what extras, shall we say, in terms of some of the design elements are. I mean, clearly, as Rebecca's also alluded to, the surrounding area, it's a mix of character. This will add to that. It's drawing on the use of the red brick, it's drawing on the use of the renders, it's drawing on the roof forms, it's drawing on the tiles. So all in all, we consider that the site's delivering a high quality development in terms of layout and design.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for responding. Councillor Gilbert, please.
Thank you, Chairman. It's good to see that all these hedgerows are going to be retained. My question is, who is going to maintain them? Have we got conditions in place that they will be? Because I think we've all seen that some lovely designs and hedgerows retained, and in a year's time they're sprawling everywhere because nobody's maintained them. Have we got some comment on that, please?
Yeah, thank you, councillors. So the maintenance will be covered. So in the standard section 106 agreement that Flagship will sign up to in the event that you approve planning permission today, and that sets out a cascade about maintenance, and that would include the hedgerows as well. I'd rambled too long. as well as the open space. So that cascade is always in all standard Section 106 agreements, an offer to the local authority, and then an offer to the town or parish council. And then if neither of those bodies are interested in taking on the open space, then it goes down to a management company. And there's quite a stringent process that they have to follow in terms of showing that that management company is set up, its terms and conditions, even down to how often it mows the grass. So all those elements will be covered in a discharge of obligation through the Section 106 agreement. I don't know if they're chumping at me. I don't know if I was about to say, I don't know if the applicants have thought at all about what their preferred option is in terms of managing the site, in terms of the discharge of that obligation at this stage. They obviously have, because they're wanting to jump in.
Response, please.
Sorry, I'm not chumping at all. I just wanted to point to condition 17, actually, which is the landscape environmental management plan, which includes requirements to submit details of management as well. So the hedgerows can be there. There has been extensive discussions about hedgerows as part and parcel of this application, trying to balance what you as the council want in terms of retaining character and what the highway authority wanted in terms of widening roads. It's been, as Barbara will know, a very long discussion about it, and we think we've got to the point where we've balanced those 2 points. But yes, I mean, Flagship will have a management organisation. They will be managing and maintaining all of the landscaping on the site. So they wish to see the hedge retained as well.
Thank you very much. Got Councillor Bambridge, please.
Thank you. I expect the wind has been taken out of my sails, because I was going to ask the agent whether he could assure and enhance on what we'd been told about the maintenance and the retention of hedgerows, particularly, because I'm quite keen on that. But Councillor Gilbert has rather taken the wind out of my sails on that. Also, my second point, which was going to be on 154F, the fact of maintaining hedgerows, and you've told us that. I do have to say that I would quite like to sometime have a chat with Flagship about maintenance of hedgerows and such, because they are becoming more and more important. We are now recognising that hedgerows and, more importantly, ditches are quite important on retaining our attack on the misuse of carbon in our society. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further questions from members? No? Okay. I just wanted to add that I'm pleased that the pathway at the north of the site has now closed off to Tumbler Hill. I think that was a good manoeuvre, and it's a very undulating site. It does go, hence the word Tumbler Hill neighbouring it, it does go down, so you will obviously have a few level problems, but that's your problem and not ours. Thank you. Okay, thank you. We're going to go for 2 votes on this, obviously for the item of the 5 dwellings at the front of the site, 3PL 2023-0110F, full application in Swaffham. Your officer's recommendation is one of approval. Could I have a show of hands, please? Unanimous, thank you very much. And our second one for 51 dwellings, 3PL 2023-0154, again in full format at Swaffham. Your officer's recommendation again is one of approval. Could I have a show of hands, please? Unanimous as well. Thank you. Thank you very much, gentlemen. That's approved. Okay, while we manoeuvre the floor and our officers, our next item is 9C at Quidnam. And we have Rob and Emma Reeve, who are the applicants who wish to speak on this item.
No, sorry. Is that all right?
Over to you, please, then, Naomi.
Thank you, Chairman. So this application is brought to committee following consideration at Chairman's panel and due to the site history. So the application seeks full planning permission for a replacement dwelling house to replace the existing fire damaged dwelling. The application site is in Quiddenham at Anvil Park Stud. This is the site location plan. The replacement dwelling would be a 5-bedroom property served by the existing access off Swallow Lane or Sallow Lane. So this is the site in relation to the settlement boundary and the wider area there. You can see East Harling settlement boundary and Quiddenham, and the site is very small somewhere. I've lost it. I'll go on to the next slide. Oh, there we go. There. So this is the proposed site plan. I've included the original site plan because it shows the outline of the original dwelling. So it shows you the relationship of the proposed dwelling to the original outline. This is the latest version of the layout plan here, and you can see they've just removed some balcony areas. So these are the proposed elevations on the right. This was the original design on the left. You can see the balcony areas there as they had proposed a first floor elevation. And this is the revised plans here, following revised plans which omitted the first floor element of the proposal. These are the proposed floor plans. As you can see here, this originally, this was the original plan showing the first floor element, and now it's all at ground floor level. The roof height is still the same, but they are using a vaulted ceiling approach to the design. And this is a visual perspective of what the property would look like once constructed. And these are the site photos. This is showing the original property there. And again, a different angle of the original property. You can see it was extensively damaged in a fire last year. And back to the location plan. So there have been some not objections as such, but the parish councils did raise concerns in respect of the design of the property proposed. They accepted the principle of a replacement dwelling, but they did have some concerns in respect of its design. It has changed over the course of the application process. So the application was assessed in accordance with policy HAL 11 in terms of a replacement dwelling on site. Following an assessment, the council is mindful that the fire last year has triggered the need for a replacement dwelling, and overall it considers the principle of a replacement dwelling on site acceptable, subject to meeting all other policy criteria within the development plan. Which brings us on to the character and appearance of the site and considerations to the design. So initially the council raised concerns in respect of a proposed 2-storey dwelling on the basis that the scale wasn't compatible to that of the original period property. The original dwelling measured approximately 353 square metres across 2 levels. And the initial development that was proposed was 552 square metres. Following discussions with the applicants, they submitted revised plans. They omitted the first floor level of the development. And so the proposal is now 415 square metres. And on balance, it's considered to be comparable. So although it appears larger on the site layout plan, it's because it has now gone from a 2-storey to a single-storey dwelling. So the footprint would obviously be larger for a single-storey property. In terms of the actual design of the property, it's considered that the site is set back from the public highway along a private track. It's not visible from a street scene perspective. The materials proposed are considered to be reflective of local traditional building styles, having particular regard to the use of facing brick and render to the elevations, as well as the use of clay pantiles to the roof, all of which are supported within the Breckland Design Guide and were present in the makeup of the original property on site, albeit it does look different to what the original property was. On balance, the proposal represents a contemporary design which will improve the character and appearance of the site by evolving rather than reflecting it. This, in addition to its location set back from the street scene and not visible from public vantage points, ensures that the revised scheme is compliant with policies COM 1 and Gen 2 of the Breckland local plan, as well as having regard to the design guide. In terms of amenity impact, it's considered that visual dominance, loss of light, overlooking and overshadowing impacts would not be a cause for concern. In addition, the proposal would not give rise to any undue noise, odour or other forms of disturbance. It provides generous amenity space for future occupants of the dwelling, and overall is considered to maintain an acceptable level of residential amenity for existing and future occupants in line with policy COM 3. In terms of highway safety considerations, the local highway authority have raised no objection to the proposal on highway safety grounds. The site shows sufficient provision of parking spaces, and overall it's considered to be compliant with the requirements of policy TR02 of the Breckland local plan and COM 1. In terms of tree considerations, there are several trees that are on site. Some are being removed. However, following receipt of additional information for consideration, the Tree and Countryside Officer has raised no further objection to the proposal, subject to conditions. And on that basis, the application is considered to have due regard to policy EMV06 of the Breckland local plan. In terms of ecology considerations, initially the council's ecologists did have a holding objection to the ecological survey submitted. They requested further information for consideration, which the applicant has duly provided. And following a reconsultation with the council's ecologist, no objection has been raised, subject to inclusion of conditions. The proposal is therefore considered to have due regard to policy EMV02. No objection has been raised from the Contaminated Land Officer, subject to condition. And in terms of flood risk, the concern has been raised in respect of river flooding, having regard to the nearby River Thet. The site is in an area identified as being at very low risk from surface water flooding. In addition, the majority of the site is located within flood zone 1, with a very small proportion of it on the western boundary located within flood zones 2 and 3. However, the Environment Agency was consulted on the application, but they've raised no objection to it on the basis that the dwelling will be located entirely within flood zone 1. In addition, a significant material consideration is that before the fire, the applicant's dwelling stood in this location, albeit on a smaller footprint, with its garden in the same location. With this in mind, the application is considered to have due regard to flood risk concerns, subject to condition. And overall, on balance, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We've got Rob and Emma Reeve. Are you just speaking, Emma? Okay. You have up to 3 minutes. You've just switched your microphone on.
Good morning. May I take this opportunity to say thank you to Naomi for all her hard work with the application, and to all at Breckland for giving us this opportunity today. My name is Emma, and this is my partner of 12 years, Robert Reeve. We have a family of 3 children, Oscar, who's 13, and George and Arlo, 2-year-old twin boys. 5 dogs, 2 cats, and 50 horses at max in our care at all times. On the 20th of November 2023, we experienced one of the most distressing days of our lives. We had a house fire through an unknown electrical source in our family home. It destroyed everything. We saved minimal items. We had to stand and watch the fire take everything we'd worked hard for and all our family memories. We had to split up as a family for a week, which was the hardest thing for us to do, and we're thankful to be alive, although lost. Due to the nature of our business and the livestock, we've had to move into our 1-bedroom bungalow on site. Myself and Rob have slept on a sofa bed in the lounge for a year now, and the boys share the 1 bedroom. It's a struggle and we have very limited space. The boys have been great, but Oscar's 13 and his GCSE studies coming up, and the twins are 2. It's hard, but we've pushed through and we hope there is light on the horizon. We have lived at Anvil, Parkstud, for nearly 10 years now. We've built a business in the equine industry and a family from here. We need a property on site to be able to care for the animals we have 24/7 for safety and security. We have no intention to sell the property. With the fire taking everything, we wanted something different, something that would make us smile again after the horrendous events we've been through. Because we are a horsey family and we have the log cabins on site, we thought the ranch-style bungalow would be perfect. We want to incorporate the style and design with our yard and lifestyle. It's a big property and we had a big property. We have a large site. It's our family home in which we intend to live in for the foreseeable future. We have 3 boys and we want to give them space and a secure environment to learn and thrive. We're hard-working people who just want the best for our family. Our proposed design is in keeping with the commercial, agricultural and equestrian setting, much more than the existing dwelling which was there. As a result, we feel we will enhance the character and appearance of the local area in accordance with local plan policy HOU 11. Please, we ask that you consider all the above and approve our plan application. We'd be grateful and thank you. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much. Before I put to members, I mean, were you actually in the dwelling when it caught fire? Wow.
I was, yeah. I was feeding the boys at lunchtime.
Wow. That's I set fire to a fir tree when I was having a barbecue with a garden candle, and that was absolutely terrifying. So how the whole house can go up, it's just absolutely shocking. Well done for being so resilient. It's open to questions from members. If anyone has a question at all, Councillor Kybird.
Thank you, Chairman. Just some clarification. The proposed condition says external materials as approved, but the application says all to be agreed. So has that agreement happened and therefore the condition can be more precise? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Khyber. We need to update the conditions. So the material type has been agreed. It's the colouring which hasn't been agreed. So we will ask for your delegation to update that condition in the event that you recommend approval to include details of the colouring to be submitted and approved.
Thank you. Any other further questions? Councillor Plummer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could I ask the officer to put up the picture of the house that's ready to be built, please? Well, you had a nice picture of the whole thing. Yeah, there was one of the whole. There, that one. We've just, at the previous application, had comments about how unsightly the houses are at Swaffham. I call that an absolute fantastic design, a fantastic house in a fantastic area. So I have no problem with that at all. I think that's a wonderful design and I have no problem. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That wasn't a question, though, was it? You get away with that one. Councillor Bambridge, please.
Well, I was going to make a similar comment, Chairman. I think it will be an addition to the landscape of the area rather than a distraction. So well done. I would also like to comment on what Rebecca said. I think with discussion on the colour, I think white is probably where you ought to stop.
Sorry, was it stop or start? I wasn't sure.
Stop.
Oh, stop. Okay, thank you. Right, okay, no further questions from members. Thank you. So with this application 9C, which is 3PL 2024-0118, and it's in full format at Quidnam, your officer's recommendation is one of approval. Could I have a show of hands, please? There we go. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time. Thank you, and we all wish you well. Thank you. Yes, I think it'd be a good idea at virtually bang on 11 o'clock if we just have 10 minutes to grab a coffee and have a comfort break. Thank you. Okay, members, thank you very much. Returning to our meeting, we move on to item 9D, 3PL 2024-0219F at Snetterton. And we've got Rebecca presenting this one. Thank you. Oh, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been associated with this site for quite a while, so for clarity, I think I'll leave the room. I worked for the company, so I think that would probably be beneficial if I leave the room. Thank you.
Okay, duly noted. Thank you. I'll send someone out for you when it's finished.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is a planning application at Snetterton Park off the Harling Road at Snetterton. The proposal is for 2 C3 dwelling houses, so 2 residential properties, to replace existing residential properties that already have approval elsewhere on the site, 4 holiday lets and 1 business centre. So here is the application site outlined in red on the screen for you. You can see it's quite convoluted and forms areas of hard standing as well as grass space, and you'll see those from the aerial photography. This slide is just to show you that the site lies within the allocation for Snetterton, so it's a designated employment site. The yellow is marked by the designated employment site as well as the purple, which were the additions to the designated employment site in the latest version of the local plan. And here's just an aerial photography just to show the site. So you can see this green hedgerow to the north of the site. You've got the A11 to the north of the site, and this site here is McDonald's and Starbucks, just off the A11 with the roundabouts. And then you can see the access roads run in sort of a U shape underneath this land with areas of grass as well around it. So here is, on the right-hand side of the screen, that's the block plan submitted with the application. On the left-hand side of the screen, the small photo is just to show you a visual image of what the site could look like. This circular building in the centre of the site is the proposed business centre. And to the north, plots 1 and 2, they are proposed to be the replacement residential dwellings, which already have consent and are located elsewhere in the site. And then these 4 buildings to the south are the proposed holiday lets. And when you look at the plans, they're indivisible from the proposed residential properties. Just to make it clear, this planning permission 2022, which remains extant, this grants planning permission for 2 residential properties within that site. There is quite a long and potted history about this, but the employment allocation, the Snetterton Business Park has always had 2 residential properties allowed on site. And over time, they've stopped using those properties, but they've relocated them to other locations within the site. But there is an extant consent for 2 residential dwellings, so you're not permitting new residential dwellings on this site. It's merely replacing them with this proposed development, and there is a condition on the application which will secure that. And members, you will also note of late that the proposed access arrangements into the site are proposed to change, and it has planning permission for a straight access road into the site. So this access road here that curves round, once the new access road goes in that's been approved, will be replaced by a direct access into the site. So you're directly leading into the business development. So it's not so convoluted to get in, and hopefully you get a more attractive entrance to the business park. So here are the proposed elevations of the dwellings and the holiday lets. The holiday lets have got carports, and I'll come on to the reasons behind that in a minute when I talk about the need for the holiday lets. And here's just the side elevations of the buildings as they abut each other. And the buildings themselves have been designed with sort of a semi-industrial feel, and that is to fit in with the wider business park context. So the flat roofs, some of the cladding. So when you enter the business park, they will look like small sort of business industrial type buildings on that left-hand side as you enter the site. And then just on the screen is the proposed floor plans, and on the right-hand side, just some visuals of what those units could look like, emphasising that industrial design. And then this is the elevations for the proposed business centre. And this is the proposed floor plan, which is to include a meeting room, a kitchen to serve the holiday lets if necessary, and the meeting rooms, and a social area, again, like a semi-social meeting space. And there's just some images of the business park. So this is as you enter the site, and the site would just be on the right-hand side. Don't know my left from right. On the left-hand side as you enter the site, apologies. This is just standing to the side of the access road which cuts through the site, so that's just showing that top northern corner of the site, and in the distance there you can just see the signage for McDonald's, etc., behind that hedgerow. This is a view across the top northern section of the site, just showing you that hedgerow again and how high it is. This is looking back towards the business park, so that's the start of the business park, those buildings there, that's sharp. So that's the access road that will connect straight into the business park. And then that's a view down to the racetrack. And then this is just looking back from the racetrack entrance opposite Johnson's back across to that northern corner, where at the minute you can see the lorries are parked, so that's the application site. And back to the red line boundary. So just so you're aware, members, the report does say that we haven't had a response from Snetterton Parish Council. Since the writing of the report, they have actually written in, and they're identifying lighting as a potential issue and have suggested a lighting condition be added to any subsequent permission if it's granted. However, this was a similar comment they make for all the industrial buildings for the wider business park site. Given that these are only single-storey buildings, they're very relatively low-lying, they've got the significant hedgerow, they haven't got the size and scale of the industrial buildings where we would add such a condition, commercial buildings rather industrial, excuse the turn of phrase, commercial buildings, because they're not industrial. We don't think it's necessary to add a lighting condition just for single-storey buildings hidden by the hedgerow away from Snetterton and the A11. So I'm not recommending we add that condition today. So as you've seen, the proposal is for 2 dwellings, 4 holiday lets and a business centre. The site lies in a designated employment area, which is actually seeking to restrict development to B1, B2 and B8 under policy EC03 of the local plan. Therefore, the proposals themselves aren't strictly in accordance with policy EC03. However, the proposals do include the business centre, which would be permissible under this policy. Also, policy EC04 does allow for mix of uses to be located on these sites, but where they're predominantly B1, B2 and B3. As the business centre is a small section of the site, we do think there is overall conflict with policy EC03. And as previously explained, that the residential that are proposed, they're to be relocated from elsewhere on site, and I've showed you the permission. The holiday lets, the 4 holiday lets, the applicant has submitted information in support of the application, which states that there is a shortage of tourism accommodation in the local area. It makes specific reference to the accommodation at the Stag, which is a short distance away. However, it's very heavily oversubscribed and sought after. So what the applicant is looking to bring forward is these tourist cottages, so that he has space, not him personally, so the businesses on the site have space within these, so that the employers visiting for that week or that day, or for employers that travel a significant distance and need somewhere to stay, have the holiday lets available to support their businesses, especially when they have specialists visiting the individual businesses on site. They don't tend to stay locally, and they struggle to find accommodation within the local area. And then moving on at the weekends to support the racetrack. So often the racetrack is obviously heavily in use. They have race meets. The race teams are unable to all stay together to house their vehicles in a secure space and be close to those, and then hold meetings about those subsequent race days. So at the weekends, it's envisaged that those tourist accommodations would house all of those race teams and their needs in terms of meeting, as well as the storage of those expensive vehicles and parts, and allow them to do works on those for the next race day. So that's the vision, I guess, behind why there's 4 holiday lets in this location. And it is important to remember that if you look at the site plan, it isn't really an area of the site that could easily be ready available for employment. It's on the extremities of the site. It's cut across by accesses currently and hard standing. And it wouldn't allow for the scale of buildings that we would normally accept in this location. So we've compared the proposals against policy EC07 of the local plan, which is your tourism policy members, and we think that there is general compliance with policy EC07. However, as I've previously set out, the proposals do not comply with policy EC04 because the proposals did not include a significant amount of B1, B2 and B8. However, looking at policy EC07, the design of the dwellings, the highways, the fact that we have no objections from statutory consultees, we do think there is overall compliance with the development plan as a whole, despite the non-compliance with policy EC03. And given the site's location, which is not suitable for a wider business park, the justification for having the particular uses in this location and the compliance with policy EC07, then we do think that we can establish the principle of development in this location on the basis of the planning balance argument. As I've just briefly set out, the applicants have worked hard with the Highways Authority to amend the scheme to make the application acceptable to them in highways access terms. The character of the dwellings are considered acceptable, with characteristics to fit in with the wider business park in terms of their appearance and materials. In the report, you'll note that the environmental health team initially raised concerns about the impact of the wider employment park and the racetrack, specifically on the future amenity of residential properties. And that was only for the residential properties, not for the other uses proposed. However, when we explained to them that those residential properties already have permission elsewhere, then they were happy to withdraw their objection on that basis. There's no impact in terms of contamination, ecology and trees, and therefore we've recommended this one for approval, subject to conditions and a unilateral undertaking to secure the GIRAMS payments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's open to questions from members. Councillor Bambridge.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Rebecca. I think I attended a panel on this and raised some concerns there. I think overall, I don't have a problem with what you presented this morning. I think it's good. I would have preferred to see the tourist accommodation more closely related to the conference centre, business centre, whatever you're going to call it there. But I think the presentation you've given this morning answers most of the questions I had at panels. So thank you very much.
Councillor Kybird, please.
As regards our hours of use, they seem relatively restrictive for a business centre, but it's excluded from that as a kitchen facility. Is that in fact a kitchen dining facility for use in conjunction with the holiday lets?
So the holiday lets themselves are meant to be self-catering, so they do have kitchens, so they're designed in the same way as the dwellings in that they have their own kitchen space and access to that. What the business centre does allow is for multiple units to come together if it was like a complete race team staying in multiple units to come together and use that space, and therefore there is a kitchen in there if they wanted some catering for such a lunch to talk about what happened at the race team. So it's a multiple use space, sort of to be worked out, I guess, depending on the take-up of those units and how they're used.
Thank you. No one else? Okay, that's fine. We'll go to a vote on this then, please. This is 9D, which is 3PL 2024-0219 in full format at Snetterton. Your officer's recommendation is one of approval. Could I have a show of hands, please? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Chris, if you could just ask Councillor Plummer back in. We now go to 9E at Swaffham, 35A Turbine Way. And we've got Lucy in the chair for this one. I don't think, did we lose Councillor Taylor totally, or she just popped out? Oh, it's on the phone. Okay. Right.
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is application that 3PL 2024-0642F 35A Turbine Way, and this application seeks planning permission for the change of use of 35A from B1.
Should you move that mic there and then switch?
No, keep your notes there.
Then we'll be able to hear you better.
Okay. This application seeks planning permission for the change of use of 35A Turbine Way from B1 light industrial to mixed use class EA and GI. This application is being heard at Planning Committee today due to Breckland Council owning the unit. This application is recommended for approval subject to conditions. This is the location plan of the site. The application site is a unit within an existing industrial estate, general employment area to the north of Swaffham. Varying commercial businesses are located in the immediate vicinity. This is the site in relation to the settlement boundary. It's in the settlement boundary. And then this is the site and its wider context. So in the existing industrial estate, general employment area. And this unit is one of many units similar in appearance terms. This is the proposed site plan and lease plan for the application. So the red line is the application site. The yellow outline is the external area, including the communal parking, and then the blue areas here and there are the exclusive parking areas for 35 and 35A, and the 35A is first floor level. This is the proposed floor plan. So it's been confirmed no external alterations are proposed as part of the scheme. However, the first floor is to be internally reconfigured to include an open plan retail area, office space, and 2 changing rooms, as well as storage areas. So in terms of the principle of development, policies Gen 01, ECO 3, and BUS2 of the Swaffham Neighbourhood Plan have been used, as well as paragraph 85 of the MPPF. The application submission states that the proposed change of use would allow for the applicant's existing retail business to expand and operate on the site. So they're currently in a unit in Swaffham town centre, and the proposal would incorporate offices previously B1. However, this is not a significant part of the proposal. Through bringing this into active use, it's considered a continued improvement to the wider employment area, and the proposals are considered compatible with the wider business park or constrain on any adjoining businesses, as it's only for first floor, and the bottom floor is the East Anglian Mobility Services Company, an existing retail use. So ECO 3 of Breckland Local Plan is the main policy. However, it's not considered to comply with ECO 3, which is an and policy and requires new development in existing employment areas to contain a significant element of B1, B2 and B8. So utilising the planning balance in this instance, it's not considered to lead on unacceptable impact on local roads or any character implications, and it's considered to be an acceptable and sustainable location for this business type. So therefore, taking into consideration this modest conflict with ECO 3, and as well as taking into consideration the other material plan considerations, like keeping this unit in use and allowing an existing business to expand, it's considered to be acceptable in principle and comply with the development plan as a whole. So in terms of the design and appearance, As I've said before, no external alterations are proposed. However, the internal areas are to be reconfigured as shown on here. And then in terms of impact for amenity, varying commercial businesses operate within the immediate vicinity, so it's considered that the use as proposed for mixed use class EA and GI wouldn't cause any significant amenity concerns of what would be considered to be expected in this location. In terms of highways, the proposal shares parking with 35, and so there's 2 disabled spaces, 4 additional spaces at the rear, and 3 spaces at the front, all with sufficient manoeuvring space, and the Highways Authority haven't raised an objection. So in the supplementary as well, Swaffham Town Council have since provided comments relating to the application, saying that they don't have any objection and it meets the current need of the business. So these are the site photos. This is the frontage of the site, and the application site is first floor. This is the wider context, so all of similar appearance. Here is the access of the site, and here is one of the communal parking areas. That's it from me.
Thank you, Lucy. Okay, it's open to questions from members at all. I think it's fairly open shut. Okay, that's fine. Okay, on this item, 9E 3PL 2024-0642 in full format at Swaffham. Your officer's recommendation is one of approval. Go for show of hands, please. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lucy. We now go to item 9F at Thetford, 3PL 2024-0588, again in full format, and this one is by Lisa O'Donovan. She makes herself comfy.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application at Thetford at the Cricket Club on Munford Road for the erection of a new pavilion. Oh. You wouldn't want that. Is that better? So it's for a new pavilion at Thetford Cricket Club. The new pavilion is to accommodate the growing members of the club, and also to the longer term plan is to be able to rent out the space to local educational providers and businesses as well as that. So I'll just run through the presentation. This is the location plan and just the wider context there, the highway to the south and residential dwellings in the distance to the northeast. This is the proposed site plan. So you'll see the new pavilion will replace sort of current temporary buildings. One's a storage container. And just example elevations of what the buildings look like. It's typical pavilion style building, relatively modest. Internal layout, all single story. And some photographs here. The building to the right hand side will be replaced, the current building to the left will stay. Again, this temporary container will go. And just picture here of the access with the boundary hedgerow and the cricket ground. Yeah, so it's brought to planning committee as the land is Breckland Council owned. As I've stated, the pavilion will replace existing temporary container type buildings will be sited in front of an existing building. It's screened by a boundary hedge, if you've seen from the photos. So views from the public realm will be relatively limited. The building has also been sited gable end facing the road, so limiting sort of views from that elevation. It's of modest construction, measuring 4.8 metres to the ridge. There's been no statutory objections to the proposal. Highways requesting conditions in respect of improved visibility and the existing access being upgraded, which have been added to the decision notice. Ecology have also recommended a condition in respect of biodiversity enhancements. Again, this has been included on the decision notice. As you can see from this slide, the club's approximately 200 metres away from those dwellings to the northeast. So this considered to give rise to sort of limited amenity issues, and the environmental health team have raised no objections subject to a cautionary contaminated land condition. As a result, the proposal is considered acceptable, improves an existing sports facility in a market town, and we're recommending approval subject to conditions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. It's open to questions from members. Oh, Councillor Wilkinson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I was just considering about the hedge. I saw the photograph on there, which is reducing the vision, and it says in here about cutting the hedge. Is that going to be done by the owners, Breckland Council? Have you got that in hand?
Yeah, so Breckland Council own the land, the cricket club maintain the land. They've had discussions and we're happy for them to do the work in order to provide that visibility.
Thank you very much. Councillor Plummer, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I ask the officer what materials that's going to be built of? They may be in here, but I've read it through and I can't find anything. What materials are used, if that's possible? Thank you.
Is there a So we've conditioned materials to be agreed. We haven't had that up front as yet. So. Yeah, I mean that will be a consideration once the application comes in.
Right, okay, no further questions. Okay, thank you. So on this item 9F, 3PL 2024-0588F, at Thetford, your officer's recommendation is one of approval. Give a show of hands, please. Thank you. Okay, so that is the main agenda parts done, apart from item 10, which are applications determined by the Deputy Chief Executive for your information, of which Councillor Kybert has made statement to. And I would just ask you all to stay for